As the title says, I have never touched a Fire Emblem game. I will admit that I was intrigued by Three Houses because of the good things that I was hearing about it, but ultimately it seemed a little overbearing with so many characters and possible branching paths. That is a major selling point to some, but having never delved into that universe, I never had the connection. But that's why, to me, Fire Emblem Engage looks like a perfect place to start. That might sound sacrilegious to some, because Engage looks to be a celebration of the series' history, so without knowing any of it, how could I fully appreciate that experience? And ordinarily, I would agree. I would never suggest somebody begin watching a show in the final season. But gaming is a little bit different. It doesn't really matter if somebody's first Pokemon game is Sun and Moon. Sure, it would have helped to have a deeper knowledge of the references, but you can still enjoy the experience. Maybe you would say a more story-driven game like Fire Emblem should have a higher consideration, and we'll get to that, but everything that I know about Fire Emblem comes from Smash. So out of the cast in this game, with it bringing back past characters, I already know Marth, Roy, Ike, Lucina, Corrin, and Byleth, with even more like Lyn and Sigurd being familiar to me through trophies and spirits and other things. That's 8 out of the 12. Most of these so-called emblems that are being brought back to this game that I and other outsiders already have an awareness of, which already gives us some investment in the narrative. Now, as mentioned earlier, jumping into the Fire Emblem universe cold might not be advisable, but even if I wanted to, it would be fairly difficult for me to go back and play all of these older games that are spread across systems that are no longer supported, or even being Japan exclusive in some cases. So I don't think that I even could get a full backstory on all of the returning champions realistically, but concentrating them in one game makes it much more of a draw to people like me who know nothing about the actual series. Even if I don't know the battle system or certain phraseology that's common to most of the players of the series, I can still enjoy getting to call up my buddy Ike and do some fighting. Sure, I don't really know many of the villains from the Fire Emblem series, so assuming that they bring them back as well, I wouldn't get the full context, but learning about them here might actually entice me to go back and try some of the older games. That might be fairly hard now with the eShop closures, but it worked before. I was in the exact same boat with the Legend of Zelda series. I knew about the franchise only from Smash, but finally I bought Breath of the Wild and it was great! And since then I've gone back and bought many more of the older games, and now I have even pre-ordered Tears of the Kingdom. So the fact that they seem to be making a Fire Emblem game that is intentionally celebrating the series for both existing fans and to appeal to outsiders on their vague recollection of past iconography means that they could likewise draw in a new crowd that may come to love the franchise. Now of course they might not, but Three Houses did sell the most of any Fire Emblem game to date. So many of those people are likely to continue, unless they find that one per system is enough for Fire Emblem. But if Engage can break through to make someone like me actually consider buying it, I have to imagine it's going to spread a lot more. Now, I will say that Engage is not a great title. When I first saw it, I thought that it was maybe a mobile game or some DLC for that Warriors offshoot or something. I was expecting something a little more grand for my first Fire Emblem game, like some of the other titles in the series, such as Radiant Dawn, or even Genealogy of the Holy War. It makes it truly sound like an epic fantasy adventure. So that is kind of a shame that it's such a weak showing on that front, and such an ambiguous title is the only reason that I could see some potential fans like me not giving it a chance, because they're unsure of what it even is, not recognizing it as a full-blown story experience. So even if many people may question the weird Joy-Con hair of the new protagonist, while we may not care about them specifically yet, letting us get into their world through the window of established characters can let us get to know these new characters and actually like them in their own right. Maybe we'll even see some of them as an assist trophy in the next Smash game. Also, fighting a giant evil Cobra Dragon just looks really cool. I'm honestly excited to try out the game. Whether it will deliver or not is irrelevant at this point. I am intending to try Fire Emblem, which no other game has gotten me to do. Part of this is the magic of the Switch, I suppose. I have been meaning to talk about that in much greater depth, but the Switch opens up many doors to video game players to try out new things. And when you pair that with the brilliant idea of slapping faces that I actually know and care about on the box, it greatly increases the odds that someone like me, a total newbie to the world of Fire Emblem, would be willing to try it out for the very first time. Who knows, maybe in 20 years they'll be doing the exact same thing by bringing back the Ghost of a Lear into the game. Are you a Fire Emblem pro, or are you just getting your feet wet like me? And what's your take on Engage? Let me know down in the comments, and we'll see you around next time!